Hi, welcome back. This is part 2 in a series where I design and build a rotating gazebo with a swing on it. The first video, hope you didn't miss it, had to do with where I had bought some scrap metal and built the floor system out of that and used some Harbor Freight casters to make this rotating foundation. This particular video has to do with me finishing the floor system, putting the posts in place, and building the band around the top of the post that supports the roof structure. I really appreciate you watching. I hope that you consider subscribing, liking, and tapping that bell icon so that you can be made aware of when I post future videos. Again, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. What I was trying to do with the lumber is to get it, first of all, in the dry because we're expecting more rain. And secondly, I was planning on staining everything before I built the platform out of it. But the treated wood is just so saturated with whatever they treat it with that there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. These are these kind of screws, if you can see that. They're called Tech screws. They got a drill bit tip on them and they're made for doing what I'm doing, wood to metal. When I designed this, I optimized the lumber the best I could because first of all, I'm very cheap. But what I did is, if you look at this image right here, the different colored boards represent a single board on each quadrant. So I know that I can use the cutoff of this board 2 or 3 boards over to make everything work out. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put these last 2 pieces down, but I will be taking them back up later on because I have to get to this nut right here. I got to make a big steel washer that will go under there that will exceed the PVC pipe, and it will help hold this thing down in the event of some super high wind or something. At least that's what I'm hoping for. It might not help at all. Okay, that's going to wrap up the wood on the floor for right now. Of course, I'll have to come back and stain it, but there's just too much treatment in it right now. It's too moist and too wet to stain, so I'll be coming back to that. Next, I'm going to cut the 4x4 posts. I also cannot stain those right now, but I'll come back and do that. So I'm going to go cut the posts next. Okay, I'm going to be using treated 4x4s for the legs and support for the roof of this thing, and they're 88 inches long. And then I've got to put a little bit of a strange cut on the top of them. It's going to take a lot of wood chisel work. It's going to look something like this when I get it done. Okay, now I got to make that special cut on the top of these posts. I've got them all cut to length, but now I go back and cut this cut into it. It's going to be a lot of chisel work, but basically what I'm doing is creating a small pocket for the end of the 2x8s to sit on. Okay, the distance from the top down to the bottom of my notch here, one of my 2x8s is 7 1/8, the other one's 7 1/4. Okay, what I've done so far is I've made 2 cuts 3/4 of an inch deep. There's kind of the end profile of what I'm trying to do there. Hopefully you can see it. All right, I decided to make 4 or 5. I'm trying to eat as much of this away as I possibly can with a solid 3/4 inch deep. So now I got to chip all this out. And they got to bevel in at a 45-degree angle. Alright, let me go see what other kind of tools I can come up with to do a little better job on this. Okay, I cut me a mock-up piece of the way the ends of the 2x8s will be cut, except the grain be run the other way. But this is the way it's going to look on the end. And this shape will take and lock into this shape, like that. And then I'll take and run big long screws in from the other side all the way into the end of the 2x8. It's a little bit of a pain to do, but I think it's really going to be a cool look. Okay, I've been experimenting a little bit with a plunge router, and I think that's going to be my best bet for cutting this 3/4 by 3/4 deep groove here. And then I have to bevel off at a 45-degree into that. So let me see if I can make that router work. This was my test run. I need to put me a stop at 9 9/16 so I don't go too far with the router. It might take a little bit of effort, but I'll tell you that's going to be the best way. So now then, I'm going to go ahead and cut all these grooves in all 4 posts first, because I got a 45-degree bit I'm going to try to come back and 45 this off with. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut all these first grooves into it. Well, I'm getting a little better, but what I found out so far is I have to make 2 different setups for each side of this thing, because the end of it's going to look like this, and it just can't do it with one setup with the router. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. One of my problems is I don't really have a plunge bit. It's a 3/4 inch straight bit, but it doesn't have apparently the configuration to do a plunge, so I just have to go a little bit at a time. Alright, I've got all the grooves cut on this side of the board, and I got to flip them over and change the setup on my router to do the other side. Now that I've thought about it, I shouldn't have to change the setup. I just got to run the router into the other direction so it doesn't pull away from the guide. So instead of pulling it to me like this, I'm going to be going the other way. No, that's going to be cutting in the wrong spot for me. So I got to flip the guide to this side. It should be going the other direction. Let's give it a shot. It actually works better from that direction. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do the other ones, and I'll come back to you when I start doing the angle cut. Okay, I got the angle bit figured out. It's going to take a setup for each side, just like the other bit did, and I'm also going to have to adjust the depth on it a couple of times, because it only cuts like 3/8 of an inch wide, and I need 3/4. Also, since I'm using the different side of the router, I have to change my depth that way some, because this bottom plate is not symmetrical. They got a flat spot on this side and not on this side. So when I'm going that way, I had to adjust it 7/16 of an inch that way. Okay, I got the 45 part figured out. It just takes a couple different settings on the router and just a very little bit of chisel work, and boy, it makes a nice looking cut there. Of course, I have to square up the bottom end down here. Okay, I got some of the staining done yesterday before the rain set in. This will be the band material that goes around the top of the posts, and these will be the top plate that sits on top of the band. Okay, so now I have all the holes drilled through these vertical uprights for the bolts that will tie to my posts, and I went around and also foamed the top and bottom of these posts just to seal them up. Keep the kids from sticking their fingers and stuff down in there. So once that dries a little bit, I'm going to trim that off and mount the posts onto it. Next, I'm going to cut the upper band. It's a 2x8. I need 4 pieces 84 inches long, and then I go back and put the chamfer on each end. Okay, I'm going to 45 it off like this. Should be 3/4 of an inch chamfer. And I put a mark right here on this green part of my saw where I know how far to slide them to accomplish that. I may have to adjust a little bit, but I'm pretty close. So my saw's set now. All I gotta do is slide the boards to right there to my mark and run it down through there. It should chamfer off 3/4 of an inch at a 45-degree angle. This is what will fit into that pocket that I made in the top of my post. This is the bolts that I'm using. They're a lag bolt. Okay, the bolts I'm going to use to attach the bands are these right here. I think they're 5-inch long. They got a Allen drive on them. They're 1/4 inch probably. So I'm going to pre-drill the holes though. I don't want to split my bands open, so I'm going to go ahead and drill the holes up here first, and then I'll go back the other way into the bands. It probably would have made more sense to do this with these posts on the ground. I don't know what I was thinking. Not bad. Pretty nice. Okay, that's got the band on. Now I'm going to go ahead and put what I'm calling the top plate on there, which is a 2x4 laying flat. And on top of that, we'll set my rafters. Once I cut them, before I put them up there, I'm going to go ahead and do the layout for the rafters on top of them. Okay, this is my last top plate. I've been working in between rain showers. I've got everything stained. I did mess up. I cut one of my top plates an inch too short. This was correct. Okay, that's got all the top plates on.